Hey, welcome to Film Fanatics. My name is Dan.
My name is Justin.
And I'm Joe.
This week, Tarzan once again swings into theaters. Disney and Spielberg team up for the BFG. The annual Purge is back, and a surreal take on modeling in Neon Demon. First up, though, a surprising opening weekend for The Legend of Tarzan. Joe, let's hear about it.
All right, I'll tell you about it. Well, The Legend of Tarzan is obviously the action-adventure film based on the Tarzan hero. You guys may have heard of him. He swings around. And it was directed by David Yates, who we've seen before with some Harry Potter films. The cast includes Alexander Skarsgård as Tarzan. And you've also got some people I didn't know were in the movie, like Samuel L. Jackson, Margot Robbie, Jijimon Honsu, who was a show favorite, I think. But definite show favorites, Jim Broadbent and Christoph Waltz also round things out. Now, in this film, Tarzan's gotten comfortable with his life in London. Now he's been kind of civilized. But he's eventually called back to his former home in order to investigate the activities of a possible illegal mining encampment. And then he discovers there's a conspiracy of evils in his former jungle, seeks to reclaim his wildman roots, and deal with the demons of his past. Now, with this movie, I like the fact that it actually took the take on the character a little differently than just purely doing an origin story again, which is what they always do with Tarzan. So for this one to be kind of a sequel to the original story, I thought was rather refreshing. And seeing Tarzan as a more civilized man having to regress was an interesting take that I appreciated. I definitely enjoyed that angle. I also liked the story, obviously rooted in colonialism. I thought that was interesting. And I thought the cast, for the most part, did a pretty good job. But perhaps it takes itself a little too seriously. The visuals are good, but the film has this dark tint that all movies seem to have now, which I thought made the visuals less impressive. And I also think the serious nature can make things a little dull occasionally, and you can feel the length. However, I did genuinely like the story and the more grounded take on the characters, and I'm curious to see what you guys have to say about it.
Fairly positive.
For the most part.
Justin, what'd you think?
Well, I think at some point in our lives we are going to get a worthy contemporary adaptation of an Edgar Rice Burroughs work. Certainly it didn't come with John Carter, but this was close. Not quite there, but close. I agree with you, Joe. The convention this took was really cool. I want to say for about the first third, but the thing that really bugged me about this is I felt like the more we got deeper and deeper into the jungle, the less refreshing and interesting this actually got. And even though it's not necessarily an origin story, they still try to sprinkle it in anyways.
With a lot of flashbacks.
And it's wholly unnecessary. But for me, there were two really, really noticeable flaws. The first is David Yates, who did, I would argue, the most underwhelming Harry Potter movies, and seems to thoroughly believes that everything needs to be an action movie. And to some extent, yes, there has to be action sequences in Tarzan, but I think Tarzan at its heart is an adventure story. Are there perilous moments? Yes. Are there thrilling scenes? Yes. Is it necessarily the raid? No. So don't have this gigantic freaking scene where he's in the middle, where he's in this like closed-in train and he's fighting off like 19 people.
Well, I think maybe for the earlier part of the story that would be kind of acceptable. But I mean, I guess when he gets out in the jungle, you can kind of blend the action adventure, and that's common. So I don't know if action movie per se, but adventure movies kind of have action in them. So that's what
they
he's going
do.
for,
but I don't think it's all green things are trees.
Except in this case, mostly they were.
Not bad, sir. Not bad at all.
But I see what you mean.
But alongside that, the action choreography in this movie is awful.
It's not the best.
Oh, it's bad. It's really, really bad. But I could forgive that. I mean, they hide it fairly well. The problem, though, alongside that is I feel like it would have benefited from a significantly less amount of CGI. Because I think it becomes like a bloated cartoon once we start heading into that.
Well, I mean, I definitely agree with you there. I mean, when it comes to movies like this, I think you definitely would benefit for some more practical effects, maybe more real animals. But in this day and age, that's good too. Though, I was thinking if you were going to have a little more fun with it, I was thinking about the color and vibrance and the true magic of the jungle in the Jungle Book. And comparing that, I think a little more of that might have spiced things up visually. You know, even though that one was mostly CGI, of course.
Yeah.
But visually, it was a lot more exciting than
engaging.
This,
yeah.
I felt.
No question.
Yeah.
This was an interesting take on the legend, but not quite up to snuff.
Yeah, I like what they did with it, though. I mean, I appreciate that it wasn't necessarily Origins. The flashbacks were wholly unnecessary. I agree.
We know who he is.
Yeah, we got it. I mean, he's Tarzan. You don't really have to go through too much of backstory, but honestly, I went in with zero expectations, so I didn't really expect much. I think the story's a little bit messy. Neither of you guys really mentioned the acting. I thought Skarsgård was decent enough as Tarzan.
For what
Passable.
Yeah, I thought he did a good job with what he had to do. Jackson and Waltz are kind of doing what they do. It's effective enough,
it
but
works.
it's not, they're not
Nobody's winning
breaking
an Oscar
new,
for it.
Yeah, they're not breaking new ground here. But everybody's, just kind of doing their thing. I think it works enough. One thing I didn't like was that there really was very little of Tarzan being Tarzan.
I will admit that
There was a couple of slight scenes where he's swinging from the vines.
Yeah.
He does a yell, which is horrible, 2 different times in the movie.
Yeah.
And the train scene sticks out like a sore thumb.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that was, I guess it was mildly entertaining, but it just didn't really belong in this film.
No.
But I have to admit, I did enjoy watching it.
Oh, no, I
Certainly
wasn't
more
bored.
than I thought.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it kind of is struggling to, do the whole Tarzan thing when he isn't Tarzan through a lot of it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's them taking a look at the story a different way, which, as I said before, I thought I appreciated. But you guys are right; he isn't really doing much Tarzan stuff until
Like
almost
late Act 3.
almost the end of the movie. Yeah, exactly. So,
His strength also
fluctuates.
it's varied throughout the
well,
film.
the Tarzan character, he's legendary. He can flexible like Hercules.
I guess. Yeah, well,
It's a little ill-defined. You're right.
yeah. Sometimes he's getting pummeled by gorillas, and
Yeah,
Comes away with a couple
several
of
times.
scratches.
He gets pummeled a couple times by gorillas, and when a real man would be dead, he's Tarzan to give him some leeway. But
Yeah.
he gets up and he's fine after like a dual barrage
Yeah.
twice by
Yes.
a king gorilla.
but then there's the part towards the end where he's almost meeting his demise, and it's touch and go there for a bit. You're like,
But
you literally took a beating from a gorilla. I think you
Yeah.
can handle this.
yeah, it definitely. You're right. It could have been
It fluctuates.
little even there.
Just a wee bit,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's true. But yeah, that's pretty much all I thought about it.
Sounds like we enjoyed it more than many.
Yeah, I mean, I think Rotten was a little more.
It's not good. Yeah, it's like in the 30s.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's maybe it's a matter of just higher expectations. I didn't know what to expect because
I was going to say, I mean...
though, Justin, you said something about what was it a good Tarzan movie in our lifetime? I know a lot of people like the Disney version. I know that's not exactly
That one's a little bit polarized, so I mean, I hesitate to call that a worthy adaptation.
well. I don't know if it's the word.
Tree surfing, I have sort of a love-hate relationship with.
Hey, you know what? At least he did more Tarzan stuff, though.
He did do Tarzan, he thinks. It's
Yeah,
fair.
there's barely any Tarzan in this film.
And you're right; it was mostly just the swinging and getting beaten up by a gorilla.
Indeed.
It's
Yeah,
kinda
true.
there.
It's sort of his thing.
Yeah.
I guess it goes with the territory.
Yeah,
All right, well, Joe, what's your grade for The Legend of Tarzan?
I thought it was pretty decent. I leave it with a B-.
Okay, it's a C for me.
C+.
All right. Justin, let's hear about the BFG.
All right. In her debut feature film performance, Ruby Barnhill plays Sophie, an orphan who, after a chance encounter with the BFG, voiced and/or played by Mark Rylance, finds herself whisked away to Giant Country. That is, in fact, the name of the land. I'm not making this up, folks. While the two slowly develop a bond, Giant Country holds more danger than the two can handle alone, eventually prompting a journey to the Queen for help. Rebecca Hall has a supporting role.
Hey,
Again,
For better or for
again
worse,
with
Dan.
Rebecca
she
Hall.
is and everything. Yeah.
Well, I hoped that after Free State of Jones, my next pick for most anticipated will be better. I feel like I got my wish. Now, I think this is largely because Rylance is so versatile, but I think between him and Barnhill, they really have a nice camaraderie. Rylance is willing to commit to the character, being out of touch, and I think the use of the mocap gives us the atmosphere without trying to do too much. We feel immersed, but we don't feel overwhelmed. But that also doesn't come without some flaws. The stakes are present, but I feel like Disney tried to underplay them for the sake of being potentially too dark, which leads the third act to sort of come a little too quickly and get resolved just as fast. But ultimately, I thought this was a pretty engaging ride. I think once again, Spielberg shows that he can really connect with kids and aspects like that. little disappointed by the box office take, and I'm sure everyone at Disney is as well. But
Yeah.
I'm curious to see how you guys took this one.
Well, they have enough hits this year.
Well, this is true.
Every other week there's a new Disney movie.
Yeah,
Seriously.
You know, other than Alice, most of them have been successes. Yeah, I don't know if engaging is the word I would use. I think like just about all Spielberg movies is too long. Certainly the kids in the theater I was in were fairly bored with it. I think it runs on too long. I think there's some scenes that could be trimmed, and I agree that the resolution comes rather fast. And really the tone of the movie changes entirely once they go meet the Queen. But visually it's astounding. It's another home run from that camp of the Zemeckis mocap train.
Yeah.
The voice acting is great from Rylance. I think he does a fantastic job, and I think the girl does very well too. I thought she was very cute. I thought they played well off each other. Everybody else was, all right.
Touch and go.
Yeah, like the Queen was not my favorite portrayal of the Queen. The comic relief in that scene was effective for kids, but didn't really make sense with most of the rest of the film, I thought. So it was a bit of more of a mixed bag, I think, for me.
Well, I just want to say that I did like the book growing up, and I liked the original TV movie that I saw. So
Yeah.
I actually had some familiarity with this work, and I like Roald Dahl, I guess, generally.
I never heard of this book.
It's one that I know Justin and I read when we were younger.
Oh yeah.
So
it's
came
a good
up.
story.
Yeah, it is a good story.
Oh, yeah, people know it. Just, I guess not me.
Yeah.
Bypass me. I know a lot of his other ones, obviously.
It was one of his later ones.
Okay.
But I think with this one, you definitely can feel the magic that Spielberg often provides. So I think that there's definitely a sense of the world there. And I loved how they captured the feeling of the scale of the giants and how they interacted with the world around them. I thought that was pulled off well. I think you pointed that out well, Justin, where it feels like it definitely isn't like you're totally immersed, but it's definitely there. I thought the designs looked pretty good too. And as you guys both mentioned, I think that the young girl, I think it's her first movie.
It is.
I thought she did a very good job.
She was great.
I thought she really held her own.
Seriously, yeah.
And
Yeah.
really, I think, really elevated the movie being the center of it. And she was charming and likable. I think it brings the world to life pretty well. I enjoyed the ideas and how it was pulled off. But I do think it is resolved a bit too quickly. And they definitely dumbed down the darkness of the story, which I'm not entirely sure they needed to do because Spielberg is fine with going darker.
Right.
And
I don't
know.
think it was necessarily him. It was more or less Disney was taking the stance of, oh no, this is too scary.
Once again, I can
Disney's pretty good with going dark, though.
and not
Depends on the movie.
and not even just with their in-house Disney stuff, but a lot of the other things that they produce that Disney technically markets out to people, with that name, they go pretty dark sometimes. I think that they could push it a little bit.
Yeah.
Keep things balanced.
I mean,
and
it certainly
fleshed out.
varies from project to project, but
It does, but I think you can definitely feel it here. It does feel like the potential of this movie is stunted a little from being like truly great, but there are hints of greatness there. I think it's an enjoyable little ride, but maybe not quite as epic as it could have been, perhaps.
Did you think it was too long?
I think
Because I really did. The first half, it was hit or miss for me.
I thought it was a bit slow at points, but I
Yeah.
didn't think it was like unbearably long.
oh no.
No, not compared to some of his other ones. More like a Tintin.
Yeah.
I can agree with that.
You know,
Yeah.
Tintin wasn't necessarily too long,
Well,
but
I mean, like with Tintin, I remembered enjoying everything I was seeing, but definitely feeling the length. So,
Certainly, yeah.
yeah, and I felt that here as well.
Yeah, so maybe a little bit too long, but I don't think I would have trimmed a whole lot from it.
Yeah, like maybe a few minutes here or there, but nothing overly significant.
Yeah,
All right.
agree with that.
Yeah, visually it was great though.
Oh, absolutely.
I think that was the best component. What did you guys think of the John Williams score?
That's a good question.
I thought it was a bit odd, to be honest.
Definitely not his.
Usually he's right on the mark,
Conventional.
and there were times, and I didn't realize it was him till the credits rolled, but there were a few points where the score stuck out to me as sort of out of place.
I felt like it was Williams trying to do a Danny Elfman impersonation.
Yeah, that sounds
Maybe,
about right,
okay.
actually.
But,
So
yeah.
I think it tried to fit the film, but just not necessarily his typical style
Yeah.
of orchestrating.
Maybe.
You know.
Maybe he was struggling with it because, like I said, I didn't know it was him. I wasn't like, this doesn't sound like John Williams. I just thought this sounds odd for this scene.
It's a good point. I was okay with it, I guess.
Yeah, I could take or leave it, but
It's not Indiana Jones, you know.
well, no.
Well, few things are. I think we can probably agree on that.
You know.
Oh yeah.
Between Star Wars and Indiana Jones, I mean,
Yeah.
Everything else is done.
two of the greats. All right, well, Joe, what do you think of grade-wise of the BFG?
I thought the BFG gets a B.
Oh, all right. It's a B minus from me.
I'm with Joe, a B.
Okay. Well, next we have Purge election year, and this is taking place on the 23rd Purge year. Senator Charlie Roan, played by Elizabeth Mitchell, is hoping to win the presidency on her platform of ending the sick annual tradition where all crime is legal for 12 hours, especially since her own family was killed in front of her years earlier during a purge. As she was warned by her head of security, Frank Grillo, who shows up from the last Purge film, her life is at stake, so most of the film has the two running from gunfire and fighting for their lives. The B story revolves around a deli owner, played by Bubba Gump, and his own struggle to survive the night. The two groups meet up by chance and fight together. Now, these movies always come with a great concept, and then the execution leaves mixed results. The first one was basically your run-of-the-mill home invasion story, which was all right. The second one upped the stakes a little bit, left them outside in the world, showed us what the Purge looks like out there, and this one sort of follows that lead. Other than the two stars here, though, the acting is fairly bad from any of the side characters, really. I mean, it's terrible. I mean, the people from the deli are okay as well, but I appreciate that the series is always trying to expand the world in different ways. You know, here we've got a political, I don't want to say a political thriller, but that does lead to one of my issues with it is that, you know, these are poised as horror movies, and this one wasn't really that scary. It was just violent.
Yeah.
It had some creepy atmosphere, but not like The Conjuring has creepy atmosphere, or even The Shallows from the other week. It's just a kind of a gore, violent fest.
Like Thriller.
Yeah, but not even a thriller, though. Just...
Well, there's a term that I have in my review that I think you can use.
Okay.
These movies are exploitation films.
Oh, okay. I could see that.
I agree with that.
I agree. But would you agree that they're marketed as horror films and kids want to see it because they think it's a horror film?
They are, and they definitely take the creepiest moments, put them in the trailers, and there are horror elements. But really, if these guys weren't dressed like demons and horrible costumes that are admittedly disturbing, it wouldn't really be a horror movie.
I would say the first one's a horror film.
Oh yeah, without question.
More standard.
The second one,
more of an action.
More of action or thriller, I guess. But, right, okay, exploitation. We can go with that for the third one.
Just because for the violence and everything.
Yeah, and that's a lot of what it was. Which I wasn't necessarily, against. I just
it's a weird,
didn't scare me at all. It made me uneasy sometimes.
The concept can be scary.
Yeah, the concept is I think, more scarier than the execution, certainly for this one. The political stuff, I get it. They were looking for a new angle. It's an election year for us. So let's throw some parallels in.
Make America great again.
Make America great again. With the devil person over there and the blonde over here that has a career in politics. But what'd you guys think?
Well, Justin, what do you think? I want to hear you first.
I guess I should kick this off by saying I think it's amazing that since 2013, you've had a movie that made a lot of money. You made a sequel that made a pretty considerable amount of money. And I feel like the director... James Monaco, who's basically his biggest credit outside of directing all three Purge movies, is writing The Negotiator.
It's a good movie.
Has really done little to try and improve what I would argue are some of the biggest setbacks of this entire concept. All right, so we're living in this really heavy political metaphor, but at least give us some reason to be able to believe that this would be a thing, that this is working, that this would lead to some sort of productive society.
I was thinking that in this one, and it didn't bother me as much in the last two.
They never show you the actual result of what it's like outside of the Purge.
Yeah, like this one they do a little bit of a prologue, a build up to the Purge, which would be nice if it wasn't entirely centered on the whole election aspect of things. I get it, it's called election year, but you've done very little to justify this entire existence of the Purge. And it's been, frankly, driving me crazy for all 3 movies. Alongside that,
Valid point.
I like that we're still running with the outside thing. And in spurts, it's a little bit more of the same. And I really want to like the characters, but they border so heavily on racial caricatures, it's almost comedic at times. There's one line that is so bad that I was basically cringing in the theater thinking to myself, a white guy wrote this movie. And
The dialogue's never been these movies' strong points, though.
yeah, but in other spots it's actually okay. But but just those little moments completely ruin the experience. So when it does actually like have minor improvements, like showing us what's coming next, giving us an idea of that not everyone on Purge night is in favor of the Purge, are fairly interesting. And for a change, a huge improvement over 2, we actually do get to see the anarchy side of things. It should be better, but because of those big flaws, I would just say it's more of the same.
Yeah, I think it's about on par with 2. Joe?
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what I established it as being. It's pretty much just the last movie again.
Right.
For better or for worse.
No, I mean, really, I thought that the last movie was actually pretty enjoyable. These movies, they take a really smart, satirical concept. I mean, that's like one of the bigger hooks. And it is a frightening idea. And there's some, dystopian sci-fi stuff there. Cool. But you're right. They don't really push it far enough. They don't really explore it that much. I mean, the most interesting things they do are when they actually focus on the characters and what they're going through. And I don't think that's as strong this time around because, at least in the last movie with Frank Grillo's character, there was something motivating him we could understand. And that was kind of one of the big centerfolds of the movie. Whereas this one, there are some political stakes, but once again, we don't see much of the result of the other side of like why it's this big thing. We just kind of assume that it's just something for the movie and that's it.
Yeah.
And so I thought, I was less impressed because it was more of the same, which I think hurt a bit for me. Which, I think you're going with a formula that people preferred over the first one.
Yeah, I mean, the first one was so standard and the Purge didn't even need to exist.
No.
For the first one to happen. Mm-hmm. So I do agree with that.
Yeah, but it's just a clone of Anarchy, honestly. Mm-hmm. That's really all I saw this movie as.
Yeah, I sort of was hoping, I guess. I didn't want them to beat us over the head with the political aspect of it because of the obvious, parallels for 2016. But, yeah, I mean, a little more context might have been nice.
Flesh out the world a little bit.
I was going to say, at least build it up. Like, okay, you want to focus on a soul home. You're not doing much to get away from generic home invasion movie, but I can see it. Second movie, okay, we're finally taking the action outside. Not bad, but we still need some sort of understanding as to why all this is happening.
See, on that national level.
Yeah.
There you go.
It's like, it's giving job opportunities and people are considerably happier. How? Why? Where's the...
I see where they're going with it. I just don't think it's that well done.
Yeah.
Like, you can clearly see, okay, there's plenty of parallels.
Yeah.
We get what they're aiming for.
Right.
But it's just not handled very well. It's not smart enough.
Not as smart as it thinks it is.
Not even remotely.
There you go. That might be a good way to say it.
Yeah. It's a smart idea that it juggles, but that's
yeah.
That's all it does.
Maybe 4 could be Purge, the aftermath, and then we see, okay, what does happen after the Purge? Mm-hmm.
There you go. That might be interesting.
All we really know up to this point is, okay, the cops get back on the scene almost immediately.
Yeah, they're there. People definitely don't want to mess with the government if you do something outside of the Purge. Yeah. So it's not like that they want to say it's evil, but then again, if they care about law and order outside of the Purge,
right,
maybe they're not quite as bad as they're presented, even though they're presented as being horrible, So, it's just not fair,
Also, did you guys notice, this is a tad bit spoilery, I guess, but the old man at the deli that was like, I'm going to purge up in my house, like, I'm just going to stay there. In the last scene, he just doesn't show up, and I feel like he died during the Purge.
Probably.
Like, they never give us any kind of... I thought it was weird.
It was a little weird.
The 80-year-old man that's made it through now 23 purges apparently
Somehow it's still
maybe
doesn't show up at this
there.
last
maybe
one.
he
I
died
don't
of like
know.
natural causes during the purge.
Maybe.
Happened.
Maybe. All right, Joe, what's your grade?
My grade is a C.
All right, C+ for me.
And likewise, C+.
All right. Well, finally, we have The Neon Demon. Joe, we'll leave you out of this one.
Fair enough.
But me and Justin will discuss.
Elle Fanning plays Jessie, a young up-and-coming model with an it factor that has all the agencies looking for her. Though, when Jessie is taken under the wing of the mysterious and arguably ominous Ruby, played by Jenna Malone, more sinister forces may be at work to get what she has. Keanu Reeves, Christina Hendricks, and Bella Heathcote have supporting roles.
What a cast.
What a cast, and what was this movie? Well, I guess the short answer to that question is it's an experimental film. And as Joe and I love to go head-to-head on this debate, my biggest problem with an experimental film is just the very nature. Sometimes it works and you get drive, and sometimes it doesn't and you get only God Forgives.
I guess that's why they call it an experiment, right?
And it's an experiment, and you can admire it for that, but does that necessarily mean it's a good movie? Now, to play devil's advocate, this tries to split the difference between Drive and Only God Forgives. This one's a lot easier to follow than the latter.
We should point out that all three are directed by
Nicholas
Winding Refn. Yeah.
Thank you.
I like that guy.
1,000 pardons for that. But the latest strives for trying to split that difference, and I think it tries too hard in that regard to gun for satire, much like The Purge, ironically enough. And the result is kind of a mixed bag. When we get into that surreal stuff, it's actually engaging and I think has some interesting observations to make. The problem is, once we get back to the sort of Valley of the Doll storyline, it just turns into really dry melodrama and doesn't really go anywhere, leading to an ending that I don't really know how to feel about. But I know you were definitely not a big fan of Refn's second to last movie, so...
No, I mean, it's completely on the opposite scale, because Drive was an A and Only God Forgives was an F for me.
Yeah.
So this one doesn't fall quite to that level. It's a step up from Only God Forgives, but by how much? I would say this was another swing and a miss.
Yeah.
I'm sort of the opposite of you. I really enjoyed the modeling stuff. I think they could have went further with that. The surreal stuff is where I just thought, what is happening in this movie? It's, all this weird, pretentious imagery, bizarre subplots that don't go anywhere. And then by the end, it descends into, like, this weird horror movie that was honestly, much more horror than anything in The Purge. I mean,
it's true. It's
there's
absolutely
cannibalism involved, Joe, and
Necrophilia.
murder, necrophilia. I mean, there's a lot of weird stuff.
Yeah.
And then in the non-surreal part, though, then you also had some really like laughable lines. Anything with Keanu Reeves in this movie was a joke. I mean,
it was not good.
He's her landlord, Joe, at this really like shoddy motel, and they have to break down her door because she thinks there's an intruder in there, this and that, and she doesn't want to pay for the door. So at one point, Reeves just says to her, like, "Oh, well, I'm going to find you." She lives in your motel. You know the room number, dude. Yeah. You have a key. Like, it was just stuff like that where it was like, wow, why is this stuff even in this movie?
Truly.
So, I thought Fanning did a decent job. Malone, I thought, was probably the best on the acting front, but
I agree.
I also think she didn't really understand her character.
She was trying to make it work.
Because no one understood the character. She was trying. I think she's very underrated, by the way. She's one of my favorite bit players in Hunger Games.
Definitely. No, I think just reading from this from a production angle, I know a lot of the things that happened in this movie were sort of improvised on the go, which is why I think...
That wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, which is why I think some of the characters, the actors, I should say, don't really seem like they have a complete understanding of their characters.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't. I think Fanning does. I guess her boyfriend does, and the one scene Christina Hendricks is in it's fine.
That as well, yeah.
But this was definitely for me another swing and a miss.
certainly interesting, but not what... I don't think it was as biting as he was trying to make it.
Yeah, it had potential.
Oh, yeah.
And the satire of the modeling stuff was where I was the most engaged, but it turned so weird.
So quickly.
It was like, am I watching Green Inferno or Neon Demon at one point, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a D+ for me.
And believe it or not, same, D+.
All right, well, wow, so this is the worst of the reference for you.
Yeah, about right.
Yeah. I still like Only God Forgives Less. I didn't think that one had much to say at all, but I feel like he may go like the Shyamalan way here, with Drive being this big, amazing movie.
And then comes everything else.
And then everything that follows is just kind of, a disaster. Well, he had 2, I guess, with Unbreakable, but...
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Yeah, The Visit was all right.
So people like Signs.
Yeah.
Yes, Signs is all right.
Yeah, Signs kind of
fits
into the okay category, but
It's got a lot of problems. But
it does. But hopefully this Refn can sort of up the ante
Get
for
back
next
on
time.
track,
Yeah.
here's hoping.
All right, well, that will do it for the show. We've got some mini-sodes up that you can check out. The Jodie Foster month one from May has been doing very well. And we've got our Disney animated films of the CGI variety up as well. And, of course, the Star Trek reviews, too. So you can join our Facebook group, Film Fanatics with an exclamation point, and the Twitter feed at Film Fanatics Pod. And also subscribe to our channel. So we'll see you back here next time. Thanks for listening.